Hello, everyone, and welcome to Divine Spiritual Connection. This is a place where we have gathered experts who will share their wisdom, their knowledge, and their experience to help you on your road to loving yourself and creating the life of your dream. I am your host, Cynthia Isaac, and it brings me so much joy to bring our next guest to you. Her name is Valerie Friedlander.
Hello.
Hi, Valerie. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'd like to share some information about Valerie before we move forward. Valerie is a wife and mom of two. She's a certified life coach and founder of the Unlimited Mom Movement. I love that. Unlimited Mom Movement. She is also the creator of the full life ownership model, which she'll share a little bit with that. She's a trained mediator and a brain science enthusiast. She is knowledgeable in a variety of spiritual practices as well. She loves supporting compassionate, badass boss women to joyfully and sustainably pursue their purpose in the world. So Valerie, we are so glad to have you. Will you tell our audience a little more about you as we get into the interview?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you again for having me. It is a pleasure because I think that this is such an important topic of addressing self-love. We were talking a little bit before we started recording about how critical it is to first love ourselves and have that self-relationship and self-connection in order to be able to connect with other people. That idea of leading your life. And to lead your life, you have to love yourself. And a lot of times people don't necessarily think of themselves as leaders, but we all are leaders, either by choice or by default. It's how we lead that makes the difference, how we show up in our life. And whether we're doing it consciously or whether we're just kind of autopiloting in survival mode. And I got into all of this because I was autopiloting in survival mode. And I couldn't figure out why, because I had done so much self-work. So much self-work. Therapy, group support. Like I grew up with some dysfunctional patterns in my home. And I've been told it's all right for me to share this, but there was alcoholism in my home, and the recovery also came early on, but not before I picked up a lot of dysfunctional ways of interacting in relationships and with oneself. And a lot of, I knew that I was predisposed to being codependent, but I was like, oh, well, I know that, so therefore I won't be. And when I got into college, I promptly got into a relationship that was basically, the way I look at it is I went, oh, you're digging a hole for yourself. Here, let me help. And I jumped in the hole and started digging too. and I really changed. Like once that relationship ended, I had so many people say to me, wow, you look so different. You're brighter and lighter and all of these things. And it was like, well, I'd taken off his stuff. Like I've been like, okay, that's not my stuff anymore.
Yes.
I don't need to prove myself. But then I was left with, okay, but who am I? And so and what do I actually want? And of course, I was still in this age of figuring that I was in college and I have no idea. And so it was a lot of work on how do I build a healthy relationship and how do I be me in a relationship and be authentic and honest and loving towards myself, setting boundaries and those sorts of things.
Yes.
But then when I became a mom, the rules of motherhood, all of the shoulds of what you're supposed to do and be like as a mom, it was these subconscious rules that I didn't even realize, but what parenting was supposed to look like based on my family and society and all of these things. And they weren't conscious, but I was reacting to them and I was beating myself up and I was lost in feeling like I was terrible at everything and just beating myself up. Like I wasn't good enough as a mom. I wasn't good enough as a wife. I wasn't good enough as a employee. I wasn't good enough as a boss. I was like, everything sucked basically. And that's what started me going, okay, this is not the example that I want to set for my kids.
Absolutely.
So I kind of use them as a motivating factor, but ultimately a lot of people say, well, are you doing this? You know, did you start a business so you could spend more time with them? Did you do it for them? And like, no, my motivation comes from me, from the belief that we must be that example, right? So Gandhi says, you know, be the change that you want to see in the world. And so yes, I want to make a better world for them. And yes, I want to show them what's possible for them. And I also want to be the amazing person that I know I am. And so even when I was like, I was in that autopilot, in that survival mode, part of me was going, but something is wrong. Like this isn't the way this isn't you.
Yes.
So I went on a journey to find myself, and it was kind of like that, but it was, when I found coaching, it was so much more than just telling me what I needed to do. Like I wanted somebody to tell me what I needed to do, but it was so much more than telling me what I needed to do. It was helping me hear myself.
Yes.
And that was huge.
Yes. You know, I want to stop in here because first of all, I want to thank you for being so transparent about, you know, where you were, and you're realizing that this is really not me. There's something not quite right about this. And I want to be better. I want to show up better. I want to show up as a mom better, be a better example for my children, a better wife for my husband, a better person in this world. So you began to go on your journeys, and your journeys was all about getting to know you, getting to love you, knowing what's right for you, knowing what works for you, and taking that and building on that. So it was about you starting on a different journey so that you could now make different choices.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
The journey of awareness, really.
Tell us a little bit about becoming aware, even aware enough to even know that you need to go on another journey, going into the journey, and some of the things that you experienced on your way. We talked a little bit about the space, taking the time to love yourself, taking the time to realize what is important to you, to be authentic. Talk about that.
So what I have found a lot is that our society places a lot of pressure on our doings. Our value is on what we do. And that's not true. So I just want to emphasize it. It's not true.
So many people have gotten to the top and done all these things and realized I went up the wrong ladder. The ladder is leaning against the wrong building. I don't even know who I am anymore. Go on and finish it. Yes,
exactly. And so it's knowing that your value is intrinsic. Your value comes from here. It's something you were born with. And the journey, for me, a lot of it was honoring the fact that I received all of the painful experiences that I had, all of the things that I had learned are part of what brought me to where I am now. So the number one thing was realizing that I wasn't broken and there wasn't anything wrong with me, because that's what I was doing. I was looking for someone to fix me. How do I fix what's wrong? And so a lot of it was realizing there's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
I have received everything that I need to be able to make the impact that I'm here to make. Like, had I not grown up in the home that I grew up with the dysfunctional patterns of interaction that I grew up with, I would never have done the work that I did around that. Yeah. I would never have, like everything. And now I find that I am best suited to support people who have had these experiences of patterns that they've learned from family and the people around them that aren't serving them, and they want to change. They want to do something different. And because I know that, it's not that I necessarily say, well, I did this, so I'm going to show you how to do this. It's more, I recognize it. I can see it.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it was giving myself the grace of honoring my journey, allowing the unfolding to occur, and knowing that this is one of my favorite analogies is that of the caterpillar and the butterfly, right? Like we love the idea of the caterpillar will become the butterfly, and it's like, yay, when do I get to be the butterfly? Can I just be the butterfly now? And it's like, that'd be lovely. But you know what often gets skipped is the transformation part.
Yes.
The caterpillar literally digests itself into goo. Like, that's kind of gross. No wonder nobody wants to do that. That's not fun.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. No wonder you don't want to do it. And it's the process. In other words, what you're talking about is many times people want to skip the process. They want to go from where they are to where they want to be without going through the process, without going through the glue, the icky. Yes. And you absolutely
the self-digestion.
Yes, you absolutely have to go through the process. And that's what you are.
And that's that idea though that, all right, one, there are parts of that caterpillar that don't get digested. There are clumps of cells that they hatch with from the egg that they reform around. So all of that stuff that has to get digested and reformed is useful. It just doesn't take the same shape. But in order to do that, it has to build a chrysalis around itself. And I see that as that's love. You have to build love.
Yes.
And encase yourself in love. And that might be asking for the support that you need, being vulnerable enough to share that you want support, and that there's nothing wrong with that. Like, again, going back to that societal, it's all about the doings. It's not. You already, even when you're goo, you're valuable. Right? Like, we get into this expert syndrome, the imposter syndrome of I can't be seen as goo.
Yeah.
But there's value in that.
Exactly.
And I think, like you said, that divine aspect, you are born with gifts. You are born with value. And then the experiences that you receive add to that if you allow that digestion to occur in those spaces, and that you hold yourself in love to be able to reform into the butterfly. And of course, the butterfly, it's got a very short life cycle. We don't do this just once in our lives. Our life cycle is much longer. So we get to do that. We get the opportunity to do this many times.
I love that. I love that you have to encapsulate yourself in the love regardless. And as you do that, that actually helps you to be that beautiful butterfly. And the thing about it is that we all have it. It is a gift from the divine. It is within all of us. We just need to be able to tap into it, utilize it, and allow it to come out so that we now are at our best, or using it, continually loving ourselves, continually growing, continually on that journey, because we never, ever, ever arrive.
Nope. Well, once you do, you're dead. So, I mean, and that's one of the things that I look at a lot of times is people are like, when I have this, then when this happens, then I can give myself space. When this happens, then I can feel happy. Then I can feel joyful once this happens. Once I make this, and it's like, no, it's now. The goals, every single goal that you have, whether it's a relationship that you want to have, whether it's a business you want to build, whatever it is, all of those goals, look at what the feeling is that you believe that you'll have once you achieve that, because that's the true goal. And the best part is your feelings are yours, and you can have them anytime you want.
And you can shift them and change them anytime you want.
Yep.
That was beautiful. That was beautiful. I love that. I love it. Love it. Love it. Okay, so Valerie, tell us about the roadmap. Well, first of all, let's tell me about the mom movement. Tell us.
Gotcha.
I love that. Tell us about the mom movement. Focusing on the mom and the mom movement, what that's all about, and why you are so fascinated, and that's such a part of your purpose and who you are.
So the reason the unlimited mom movement came about was essentially because of what happened to me when I became a mom. And I put myself in a box of rules. I call them the rules of the roles, which is really hard to say, but like I need to come up with a different way to say that because it's really hard to say. But those rules that were subconscious for me, but they were rules that were, to be a good mom, I had to do these things. To be a good, whatever the role was in my life, that it was confined. And if I didn't fit in that, then I wasn't good and I wasn't good enough. And again, that breakdown of my own value, that questioning of my own value. And so the unlimited mom movement really came about because of realizing how much I had limited myself and boxed in what I could have in life and what was okay for me, what was available to me in my life as a mom and even as a wife and as a person, because I never would have let myself consider the idea of being an entrepreneur. Like that was I just didn't do that. Like there were things that you did in life. You went to college and then you got married and then you developed a lucrative career and then you bought a house and then you have kids and then you 2 kids and like I had very and I did those things.
Yes.
I built that life. I had everything but the white picket fence.
Yes.
Right? And yet once I had the kids, that was like the last piece of the puzzle. And I put that piece in and it felt like everything else kind of popped out of place. And everything that I was tolerating, everything that I didn't love about my life, that was just the shoulds in my life, magnified so many times, because there's a natural stress in motherhood because you push your comfort zone all over the place. So it's normal to experience stress in motherhood, which one I beat myself up for, because you're not supposed to feel stressed when you're a mom. You're supposed to feel in love and, it's beautiful and it's amazing. And, it's like, I'm so tired and exhausted and this is awful, but I love them so much. It's like the duality of life just was really obvious in that experience.
Yes.
But I hadn't realized how much I had constrained myself based on what you're supposed to do to be happy. And again, like what I was saying before, once I have these things, then I'll be happy. And when I wasn't, I went, what did I do wrong?
What's wrong?
I did all the things.
What's wrong with me? I need to be fixed. I'm not good enough. I'm not working.
Exactly.
What's wrong with me? Yes.
And so it was, and so it was like, why? I did all the things. So what's going on here? And so that was when I started doing that looking of, okay, I know I'm not fulfilled in my career. So that was where it started, that was the one thing that I was willing to change in my life. But I drug my husband to therapy. I went to therapy. I'm like, what's wrong with us? And realizing that it was really the limits that I'd placed on what being a good person should look like. And so when I started to shift those rules, it was really honoring, and I use that word a lot, like that idea of honoring your inner light and your purpose in the world and the gifts that you bring, which aren't the same as anybody else's.
Right.
Nobody in the world has the same combination of natural gifts and experience that you have. And so taking off those limits of what it's supposed to look like and allowing you to define your life your way.
Yes.
And that was what that movement was all about, because especially in motherhood, there are so many shoulds.
Yes. And
so that's why it was focused on moms.
Yeah, I love that. That's why, we talked about that. I love it. And so many expectations that we have of ourselves, that other people have of us, and the society have us, particularly around motherhood. And so many people get caught up in that, and they're in a trap, they're in a box, they live a life less than what they should be living. So I think it's just extraordinary that you have gotten out of that box, that you are unlimited, and you're showing other women, mothers in particular, how to love yourself, how to honor yourself, and how to become that authentic person rather than depending on society, life to create your life for you. You are indeed creating your own life and living your own dreams. And that's what this is all about. So I just give you 2 5s.
Thank you. I love it.
Yes. Okay, so Valerie, tell us, I know that we have a gift that we talked about that's available for our audience. But before you do that, I really want to just address the audience and say, and I do this all the time, whenever we interview with someone, there's always so much information. There's always so many things that the people are sharing, their own life. They're being transparent. They're sharing, what has helped them move to the next level, how they are loving, how they are showing up. I'm just asking the audience to have at least one takeaway from this interview, from this conversation, something that was said in this conversation that you can take away that will help you to move closer to being that loving person that you want, that best version of you, for you being closer to living the life of your dreams. One thing, one action that you can apply now to do that. Okay? All right. Valerie, tell us about your gift.
So my gift is called the Back on Track Roadmap. And it's because I created this because so often I was seeing people get derailed from their goals. And a lot of times it stemmed from that confusion around what your goals truly are, because we'll pursue things that actually don't align with what you really want. It's that when I have this, then I will feel this way. And we don't do anything that doesn't fit with our belief about who we are. So, that idea of that brain science aspect of our brain creates buckets of what's familiar, and we're very attached to those buckets. And so it's...
Let me say something. We don't do anything that our brain is not in alignment with. Did you hear that? You may say it, you may want to, but you will do nothing unless your brain is in alignment with that.
If you believe that, if you truly believe that about yourself. And so the first part is identifying where you aren't believing that, and then looking at what the belief is. Because we'll often look at our feelings of like, well, I feel bad, I feel down, I feel like life's happening to me. And it's like, well, that belief, I feel overwhelmed. I love that one, is I feel overwhelmed. Well, that's a sense that life is happening to you and you don't have power. So the belief is, I don't have power. So when you can unpack the belief, then you can identify, well, how true is that? If I did have power, what would be different? And you can engage it differently. So the idea here, and you go back to that unlimited idea, the realm, my mom used to say, like, look at the realm of all possibilities. And I'm like, that's overwhelming. The realm of all possibilities is too big. So I'm an advocate of taking the limits off in terms of recognizing where you're limiting yourself, and then choosing the limits that you place on for creating an experiment. So I'll talk about like putting on your scientist goggles. Like, don't, like, when scientists do an experiment, they're like, all right, I want to make water. Okay. If I didn't know how to make water, I want to make water. That's my goal. I want to make water. So I'm going to take hydrogen and carbon and I'm going to mix them together. Like, this is my experiment. So it's not, I'm going to make everything. I'm going to make water, right? I'm choosing what I'm going to try. All right. And so I'm going to take hydrogen and carbon and I'm going to mix them together. That did not create water. Now a scientist doesn't go, oh, carbon stinks. Like, who wants carbon anyway? Like, whatever carbon. Like, Scientists don't do that. They're just like, okay, that didn't work. All right, well, let's put the carbon to the side and let's try oxygen. You know, like it's an experiment. So you do set limits on the experiment, and then you learn from the process. So what this roadmap is a way to learn from the process rather than getting derailed and beating yourself up and getting stuck in that repetitive pattern of doing something, it doesn't work. I must not be good enough. Something must be wrong with me. I can't get anything right. And all of the self-defeating inner critic kind of thoughts. So this helps you actually take the information of whether you took action or not and how to process that information into creating those limits. And then even maybe looking at, well, what's the overall vision? So the first part is taking the limits off. Who do I want to be in the world? What do I actually want? And the key is, what do you want? Not what do you not want, right? So what do I want? I want to feel joyful. I want to feel fulfilled. I want to feel accomplished. Like those are the things I want. Okay, so now we create a plan that fits with that vision, and then we take the action. And we have to look at, if I didn't take action, I have to look at what are the limiting beliefs that I have? What's the inner critic saying? And those sorts of things. So it walks you through this process of creating an aligned plan and action that fit with who you want to be, your best self, and then feeding that information in. So instead of going, oh, carbon stinks, you're like going, oh, okay, that didn't work. What do I want to take away from that? Where does that fit here? Okay, now what am I going to try next? I'm going to try oxygen, right? So it's a roadmap and a training video to help you walk through that process in anything that you are trying to accomplish in your life.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Wow, wow, wow. That's a generous gift. I know a lot of people will be able to utilize that and gain much, much benefits from that. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
My pleasure.
All right, we are about to wrap up our interview, and I thank you so much, Valerie, for coming on, for showing up for all the moms that love themselves and need to really live their dreams and do what it is that they came here to do. So thank you so much for that. But before we leave the interview, I would like to ask you, is there anything else that you would want our audience or the moms, anybody out there listening and looking at this, is there anything else that you would like to say before we close this interview?
I would say the main thing, the most important thing in my mind is to know that you deserve joy.
Yes.
You deserve love. You deserve it from yourself, regardless of anybody else. You deserve it. And you are capable of owning your life.
Yes.
And that's a process. It's a constant process. So allowing yourself to be in the process and know that no matter where you are in the process, you are valuable and deserving of love.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You couldn't have said it better. You are valuable and deserving of love, just you by yourself. Mm-hmm. And as you love yourself, then that love will spill out to other people. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of your gifts and your talents and your wonderful gift with us.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Bye now.